because we want to acknowledge all of our people.
Yes, but we allow you to turn the fan off separately. Rewire. So the fan no longer so that it didn't work. So that the bathroom stays.
Buenos días y bienvenidos. I'm the Reverend Katie Romano Griffin, your assistant minister.
And I'm Mary Farrar, today's worship associate.
It's a beautiful day at Cedar Lane's Unitarian Universalist Church. We are a liberal religious community where love works. That's right. Our mission is to explore the eternal, to nurture community and build a more just world. Together, we dare to embody the beloved community. And I want you to know that whether you're joining us in the sanctuary or connecting online, and I'm also talking to our folks in India right now who are live streaming. Go ahead and give them a wave. Please know that whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, wherever you are on this life's journey, and whatever your gender identity, beliefs, or immigration status, you are welcome here.
If you are new to Cedar Lane, we have a small gift for you. Please raise your hand if you're comfortable doing so, and keep it raised for a moment so that our ushers can find you. Included with your gift is a beautiful brochure that introduces you to Cedar Lane. As a liberal faith, what holds us together is our ability to connect deeply. The greatest gift you can give today is your presence and the ability to stay connected. We invite you to complete the form at the back of the brochure and place it in today's offering plate.
All are invited to stay after service today to enjoy coffee and conversation. Know that if you choose to use a yellow mug, our friendly Cedar Laners will greet you, because at Cedar Lane, yellow means hello.
I'd like to draw your attention to this announcement page that you might have picked up in the back. There are a couple highlights. Today at 12:30 in the library, there's a self-care themed pizza brunch for young adults. And this Thursday, the Alliance is sponsoring a noon potluck and a 1 p.m. talk with the topic, Facing Illness and Grief, Finding Compassion and Support. Our lay pastoral visitors work closely with the ministers to support the pastoral ministry of our congregation. Phil Smith, who's over on that side of the sanctuary, will be available by the Joys and Sorrows candles table after the service to offer pastoral support.
You might notice that your programs look a little bit different this morning. Don't you feel more eco-friendly? Yes, sí se puede. Yes, we are saving paper, we are saving trees, and we are saving dollars. So we're going to experiment with this new order of celebration for a little bit and see how it goes. I have an invitation for you. If you are thinking of ways to explore Black History Month and Unitarian Universalism, I invite you to think about picking up Black Pioneers in a White Denomination. It is a wonderful book by the Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison Reed, and we should have a copy in our library if you're looking for one. So I invite you to consider doing that reading and maybe to discuss it with others at Cedar Lane. Now, in keeping with the spirit of deepening our connection to community, let us turn and greet our neighbors. It's good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good morning. Good to see you. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Let us enter this time of worship with the words of the Reverend Connie Simon. This is the hour. The time has come. Mindful of our responsibilities as leaders of this faith and guardians of our living tradition, we call upon that great cloud of witnesses, those who came before, those who are here now, and those who have yet to come to this saving faith. We seek their presence, love, and support in this place, in this hour. When we kindle our flame today, may it light our path and call them near as we undertake this sacred work. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing together hymn number 128, For All That Is Our Life.
For
Roger Santo Domingo and his family come forward to light the chalice and speak the words that are written in the order of service. We are the flame and we are the fuel that brings light to this community. We are the flame and we are the fuel that brings warmth to this community. As we light this chalice, let us commit to both giving and receiving the light and the warmth of this religious community. You may be seated.
As we move through this month of generosity and giving, we are entering into the spiritual exercise of learning about each other, what brings us to Cedar Lane, what keeps us at Cedar Lane, what kindles our flame, so that each story which is shared, may it also kindle a flame in you or help you connect with what it is that keeps that fire in your heart burning and calls you to glow still more. Today's affirmation is being gifted to us by Roger Santo Domingo.
Thank you, Katie. Good morning. So, how many of you, or who hasn't watched or seen Star Wars here? Raise the hand. You haven't seen? Oh man, you're in the dark side here. Right? Well, if you need, I can talk about it later. Or ask to the next to you. Well, one day, by chance, or perhaps it was destiny or revelation, I stumbled upon this place. It was a Sunday when I was jogging through what seemed a nice and safe wooden area. Indeed, I was in a deep meditation, surrounded by the beauty of the road, the trees, the sound of the water from the creek. I was concentrated, focusing my sweat and on my breathing, and suddenly I found myself gasping for breath, thirsty, on the point of fainting. Of course, I was out of shape, so I noticed a water sprue nearby, but it was totally dry, and the only public place outside was a mysterious building, a UU Cedar Lane church. Well, estaba en una encrucijada. I was in a crossroad. Either I will sneak into this church to get some water, right? Or I will have to start crawling back home. I don't know what happened. Well, when I entered the building at 9 a.m., the service was starting. I quickly relieved myself, and from the hallway over there, I heard the music coming from the sanctuary. It was so beautiful that I just snuck inside the sanctuary to listen. I wanted more of it. So I stayed enough to listen a minister that was speaking of Mahatma Gandhi's fierce calm, and of Ganesha, the goddess of new beginnings. I saw this guy is really smart. And at the end of that sermon, I discovered I was in a deeper thirst that I will not quench that day. So, al final del día, tenía una sed que no podía satisfacer ese día. Tenía sed, I was thirsty. I had an orphan's thirst. I thought that the crossroad in which I found myself that day was one of those in which you take the path for the rest of your life. A few days earlier, I had applied for asylum, you see, and I was seeing my country disintegrating as a planet targeted by that evil Death Star of Star Wars. But more painfully, in a slow motion, I could feel in my body the sudden obliteration of dreams, careers, lives, of democracy. A tremor in the force, I will say, that my people was and still is experiencing. A great void growing my soul since. Yo lloro por Venezuela todos los días. I cry for Venezuela every day. And that is not a figurative sentence, it's a reality. But this pain hasn't destroyed me. It has awakened me. The real Death Star, that machine of destruction, is not the fictional one of Star Wars. It's one fed by hate and ideology. Its power crushes dreams and human rights, and is threatening people everywhere, not only in Venezuela, of course. Where, then, can I learn Mahatma's fierce calm? I was living in exile, far from my country, from my family, my friends, my profession as a journalist, and with no true religion to comfort me. Crecí en una familia incrédula, en parte por la incredulidad de mi madre que está acá. Algo agnóstica, I mean, sort of agnostic. I grew up in a very incredulous family. Sort of Catholic. I grew up in a Catholic culture, of course, and I even studied in an Augustinian school. Later, as an adult, I discovered the Buddha, and I learned to meditate. But no religion could quench my thirst then, my orphan thirst. Sí, hay momentos en que he visto a Dios, que me ha sonreído. Yes, I have seen God smiling at me sometimes. Once, in the company of my son, it kindled my soul while witnessing the dawn on the top of the Avila, that beautiful mountain in our hometown. Sorry. I read some rose in the horizon. Wow. I have to read. A red sun rose in the horizon while a carpet of colored clouds was extending to infinity below us. I don't know, I read this before, I don't know what is this reaction. So, often I seen his divine, happy face in the face and the eyes of my daughters when they asked me to play with them. In my mother's smile, my mother, who is actually leaving next weekend to Venezuela, he's going back, he's very brave. And also in my wife's face when after love, it's under the spell of a song, of a poem. In those moments, I could have used a religion that allowed me to embrace nature, art, reason, and love. All those things that moved me. Instead, I had two favorite surrogate religions, science and fiction. So, yeah, on the one hand, science, because it was so powerful, explaining reasonable things, validating the truth of reality. And on the other hand, fiction, art, the ability to inspire stories that allow us to discover the sublime, the painful, and the beauty of the world. Well, as a result, my faith are not a science and fiction anymore, but just a science fiction. Like that of the Jedis of the Star Wars saga, I dream of becoming a compassionate warrior of the Force, confronting the dark side. And at Cedar Lane, I have become a Padawan, a Unitarian Universalist Padawan. For you guys that haven't seen Star Wars, it's kind of a sorcerer's apprentice. Well, I hope you go out of the dark side soon. Well, Cedar Lane has welcomed me and my family and has become my home, my family. It has given us hope and sometimes have protected us against unemployment, homelessness, but more than nothing has protected us from a nefarious kind of solitude, la soledad del exilio. The solitude of exile, of being the other. Well, may the Force be with you.
We gather each week not for our needs alone, but to bear witness to our joys and sorrows, triumphs and disappointments. In this living sanctuary, we come together as companions on life's journey. When I hold up my arms, I invite you to say, "We hold you in our hearts." If you are living through the small and extraordinary milestones of life, we hold you in our hearts. If parenting is your spiritual practice, we hold you in our hearts. If you are mourning a loss, we hold you in our hearts. If you live with or care for someone with grief or chronic pain, we hold you in our hearts. If you are struggling with illnesses seen and unseen, with mental illness or addictions, we hold you in our hearts. If you have suffered abuse or injustice, we hold you in our hearts. Here at Cedar Lane, we hold up Laura Mae Dillow, who is home from the hospital and recovering from pneumonia, Rita Petillo, who is in Holy Cross Hospital now, but will be transferred to a rehab hospital soon, Robert Griffin, the father-in-law of Reverend Katie and the father of Sean, who had a heart attack last Wednesday and will undergo cardiac catheterization on Monday. We also want to offer prayers for choir member Kevin Miller, who underwent successful triple bypass surgery last Wednesday. He's resting comfortably at home. We hold you in our hearts. Our caring extends beyond Cedar Lane to others whose lives are lost or impacted by violence and calamities in our world, especially those who are starving and dying in Venezuela. May these friends of ours, our companions in the world, and all that lives unspoken in our hearts, be held in the embrace of prayer and by a love that will not let us go. During the silence, those grieving a loss or commemorating an anniversary are invited to rise in mourning and memory. Please remain seated as we sing number 402 in the gray hymnal, "From You I Receive."
To a space of meditation or contemplation. You can keep your eyes open, you can let them focus on this glorious flickering chalice, or let them close, whatever is most comfortable for you. And as we enter this space and this time together, I invite you to breathe in to the count of 4, whatever that is for you, and to exhale to the count of 6. So you'll breathe in to the count of 4 and exhale to the count of 6. And as you're noticing that flow of your breath, notice the way your abdomen moves out when you inhale and how it moves in when you exhale. Right now, you're breathing in about 21% of life life-giving oxygen. With each and every breath, it nourishes your cells, and when you exhale, you are sharing 16% of life-giving oxygen with the room. You're sharing carbon dioxide, which feeds our plants. You are breathing life to the count of 4, filling with life, and sharing life to the count of 6. So as we center ourselves with our breath, know that any sounds you hear in the room, the shuffling in the chair, the occasional cough or sniffle, know that these sounds remind us that we are in community with others, and we are safe in this space as we breathe life, fill with it, and share it. And as you're breathing, I invite you to remember a time where you were the recipient of love. Maybe it was from a pet, a grandparent, a teacher, or someone else. Just think of a time when you received love as you breathe in with life, and allow that love and that life to fill you. And then move into the room, breathing life and love, filling with life and love, and sharing it with the room. And if there are any constrictions in your body or your heart, if you notice any feelings coming up as you consider being the recipient of love, notice them. Breathe into them to the count of 4 as you fill with life. And exhale. Good. And I invite you now to think of a time when you were the recipient of someone's time. Maybe they helped you wrap glasses for that big move. Or maybe they sat with you when you were sad or cooked you some soup. Whatever it was, breathe in to that time where you received the gift of someone's time. Fill with that life and share it as you exhale with the room around you. And if you notice any constrictions when you think about what it was like to be the recipient of someone else's time, just pay attention to those feelings. Feelings are holy. They give us clues towards what is calling us to expand. So breathe with life to the count of 4. Fill with it, and share that life with the room around you. Think of a time when you received the benefits of someone's talent. Maybe they baked you an amazing cake. Maybe they gifted their talents to you by helping you write a difficult email or letter. Whatever that gift was, breathe it in as you fill with life and share it with the room around you. What is it like to receive a gift of talent? Notice what you feel in your body as you breathe, receive, and share life. Maybe think of a time when you were gifted treasure. Maybe it was a surprise check from Pepco. Maybe it was a gift card from a friend, a Starbucks card from a student. Breathe it in. Fill with it. Share that life with the room around you. And if you notice any constrictions you might have towards receiving, notice where they live in your body and breathe into that space, expanding it, filling it with life. And when you exhale, release that constriction. I invite you now to think of a time where you gave of your time. Think about when you gave of your time. For some of us, this will be a pleasant memory. of singing in the choir or greeting someone as an usher, babysitting for a friend who just needed a night out. But for some of us, we might feel some constriction because we've given too much of our time or there have been too many demands. Notice what comes up for you and breathe to the count of 4, filling with life and exhaling. Good. Think of a time now where you may have given of your talents, where you helped someone craft that email or practice their sermon, balance their checkbook. Breathe in that gift that you gave so generously and exhale. And again, notice what you notice. If you breathe in, fill with life, exhale, sharing life. Now think of a time when you gave of your treasure. Think of the things that the gifts that you've given financially have done in the world. Breathe in, fill with life, exhale, sharing that life with the world around you. And if you notice any other feelings swirling around as you think of giving, just pay attention to them. Breathing in and breathing out. I invite you now to think of a time where giving or receiving gave you great joy. Or maybe think of a time where you felt unrestricted joy, where you felt comfortable in your own skin and so happy to be alive. Breathe in to that moment of joy. Let it fill you with life as you breathe life. Fill with life and share it with the room around you, maybe even smiling with unrestricted joy as you remember and recapture this memory in this space. And when you're ready to open your eyes, I invite you to enjoy cantar.
Sing
was curious about who would show up today, knowing what we'd be talking about for our reflection. And I'm just curious, who read in the e-news what today's sermon would be about? Oh, a lot of you. So can I assume the rest of you didn't? That's okay. It's completely fine. I was just curious because we're talking about guilt, shame, and giving. 3 of the least favorite things for Unitarian Universalists to talk about, besides sin. That's another one, but we talked about that a month ago. So for me, there is no more awkward time of the week in Unitarian Universalist congregations across the country than the offering. It's a time where cheesy jokes come out, where there's awkward giggles, and there's an air of shame and guilt hanging in the room. For folks who grew up UU, they grew up with the cheesy jokes and the awkwardness. I've heard this. I've asked people. And then for those of us who've come in from other faiths, we may have brought some of our feelings about giving from our other faiths. Or maybe our blocks to giving started even sooner than that. Maybe our emotional blocks to giving generously started in our childhood. I got a call from my real estate agent yesterday. For those of you who don't know, Sean and I, we are very excited. We bought a house in December that we moved into. Thank you. We think we know where all the light switches go to now. So why, might you wonder, would our real estate agent be calling us? Well, Steve is amazing. And aside from checking in on us to make sure we were happy, he wanted to let us know that he tithed 10% to an organization that the person who referred us to him chose. So Steve's spiritual practice is, if no one refers a client to him, he just tithes 10% to his spiritual organization or to another organization. And if someone refers him, then he goes to that person and says, what gives you life? What gives your life meaning? What calls you to be better and make the world a better place? And then he tithes 10% of the transaction, no matter how big or how small it is, to that organization. Now, sometimes it's a $2.5 million deal. And sometimes it's our tiny house. But when I talked to Steve, he said, sometimes it's scary to write those checks because there's lots of places those dollars could go. But he does it, and there's moments of reflection, like at the end of the year, where he sees all the ways in which his work has created life in the world that give his life meaning. And I looked down at the makings of my sermon and ripped it up. But seriously, Steve reminded me about something the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray said last week when she was here with us. And if you didn't see Susan, catch her online on our YouTube channel. It's worth listening and watching that particular service. Susan talked about her own practice of giving 10% and how it came into being not from our Unitarian Universalist faith, but her husband's faith of origin. And she talked about how now is no time for a casual faith. And that her practice of giving, even though there were times when she couldn't give 10% because of student loans or an emergency surgery or something else, even though those times happened, that practice of giving helps her live her faith. And that reminded me of my own story. I grew up poor, and our feelings around money and giving were very complicated. we would go to church and we would always have something to give. I mean, no matter how we had to figure it out, whether it was coins or whether it was cash, we always had to put something in the plate. But there was this shame when it was passed. We would, with clutched hands, reach over and put something in the plate, wondering if it was good enough, if our gift mattered, because it was so small. There were lots of crumpled dollar bills in that plate from my family, and lots of small coins. And for us, it was, what else is that money needed for this week? And yet we still should be giving something to our community. So there was so much wrapped up in that moment. And then sometimes beside us, just like here on Sundays, I know there's, 10,000 or above givers and tithers, and folks all the way in between on the spectrum, each with our own worries, our own insecurities, our own shame, our own guilt about if we're giving enough. Are we giving too much? Does anyone else care? Sometimes there's even anger in these moments of giving. So my best friend and at the time business partner, we were running this PR and marketing firm. We opened in 2007, and it was the worst time to open a business because it was in the middle of the market crash, and we were in one of the worst hit areas of the country. Obama came twice to Fort Myers, Florida, where we lived. So that's how you know it was so serious. Obama came twice. I was single parenting at the time. I had 2 small children. And she says to me, come to my church. She's now a minister in another denomination. She's like, come to my church, do this 10-week experience on giving with me. And anytime someone says, come to my church, I kind of go, but I went. I went to my services on Sunday, and then I went for this class called Prosperity Plus, given by a woman who ended up being our mentor and our coach for many years, my business partner and I, Mary Morrissey. And this 10-week program is about tithing 10% of your time, talent, and treasure. And you walk into this room, and there's this circle of people, some of them who look really happy, which immediately raises a flag for me. And I want to know, have they had too much coffee? Are there donuts bigger than ours here? Is there something about this program that's going to suck me in, and I'm going to be signing away my life? So I had all these questions I was wondering about. And I'm also thinking, because I'm a UU, now this 10% thing, is that net or gross? Right? The answer is it's gross. Yeah, so it's whatever check comes in for this 10-week period, you're supposed to write 10% of it to the church that's giving the class. And then there are these clipboards all around the room where you sign up to tithe your time and your talent. So it's not, I can't really give this week, but I'm going to give you some time. And here's why. It's time, talent, and treasure. Because every penny matters. Because every minute of your life matters. You often will hear me say, show me your checkbook, show me your calendar, and I will know what really matters to you in life. Now, a lot of times, our checkbooks and our calendar are things that we are living, that we are trading minutes of our lives for. We are living that life by default. But this 10-week experience, it didn't just teach me about generosity of time and talent and treasure. It also taught me what's really important to me. And as it turns out, now those of you who know me know, I love Buffy. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, there are some TV shows that I just love. But as a single parent, entertaining this exercise, I had to really think about where my dollars were going. I mean, literally, every check that comes in, you don't do calculations to figure out how it fits. Nope, you just write the 10% check. So I had to think, okay, do I really want cable? And I canceled cable. I had 2 small children and no cable for a couple of years. But I felt great about it. It didn't feel like a sacrifice for me. It felt like a conscious choice to decide for something else instead. And I also found some of the things on my calendar, some of the things that I was giving my time for, some of the boards that I was serving on, didn't give me life. So if you're doing something right now, if something is getting your time and you don't love it, if it is not in alignment with your values, if it is not in alignment with who you want to be in this world or the change you wish to seek, stop it. Now, even if it's something you're doing here, if you don't love it, don't do it. I will help you find something you love that gives you life. Sean and I, we've only lived here a year and a half, and it's taken me a year and a half to figure out where I can tithe my time and my talent. My time is with my jiu-jitsu class that does classes for Girl Scouts and teaches them self-defense and also teaches women from domestic violence situations self-defense. So when those times come up where we're going to be teaching those classes, that becomes a priority for me to tithe my time there. And I tithe my talent as a minister, working with the Civil Air Patrol. I work with middle school and high school students, teaching them character development, preparing people to go into the Air Force if that's their choice, or to serve on search and rescue missions here in our area or to be deployed elsewhere. That's part of how I tithe my time. And my treasure, we give to Cedar Lane. This is what we consider one of our main sources of giving. The work that this congregation does is no joke. It is changing the world inside its doors and outside of them. So how are you giving? Does it give you life? And I invite you to share, when you think about giving, what some of your blocks might be. Just shout them out. Resentment, fear, scarcity, good one. Fear of failure, overload, overthinking, too many emails. What other blocks are there to your generosity? Too many causes. Yeah. There are so many things tied up with what we trade our lives for. Tied up with our finite time on this earth and the dollars that we've traded our lives for. Sometimes it's hard to make those decisions. But I'm inviting you today to decide for your lives, to decide for the life that you would really love to live. And whether you want to enter into a 10-week experience or not, find that thing that helps you to look at your relationship to your resources, your precious life resources, and how you would like to engage with them generously in a way that is freeing for you, that gives you life and creates life in the world. And whatever it is that you give, it is enough. Give until it feels good. Of your time, your talent, and your treasure. All three. I'm here to support you in this process, now and always. This is a spiritual experience. My prayer for you is this. As we move through this month of exploring giving and generosity, may you decide for your lives. May you claim your calendar. May you claim your checkbooks. And may that create a better world for you and for everyone else. May it be so. Amen. And blessed be. As we enter into our time of giving today, I invite you to hold that change, to unroll those dollars, to give from your heart and knowing that everything that you give, it matters, is an expression of love. It is the promise of hope. Give faithfully, give hopefully, give generously. Your gifts will be gratefully received. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. We receive the offering with the words of Lynn Unger. By the work of our hands and the work of our hearts, our love is made real. May we be grateful for all that is given and grateful for all that is shared.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Phil, today's pastoral visitor. Thank you, ushers and greeters. Thank you, AV team and gifted musicians. Thank you, Roger. Thank you all for tithing your time and your talents and your treasure to make this community and worship possible today and every day. Thank you, team leaders and ministry team members. I see you out there and witness the good work you do within our walls and beyond this community. We close our service with the words of the Reverend Eric Walker Wickstrom. If you are who you were, and if the person next to you is who they were, if none of us has changed since the day we came in here, we have failed. The purpose of this community, of any church, temple, zendo, mosque, is to help people grow. We do this through encounters with the unknown in ourselves, in one another, with the other, whomever that might be for us, however hard that might be, because these encounters have many gifts to offer. So may you go forth from here this morning, not who you were, but who you can be. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing about the world we'll build together. Hymn number 121, We'll Build a Land.